Welcome everyone to the start of the final two races for the Formula Racing League Taco Tuesdays Tier 2 with 40-minute race at Monza, 40-minute race at Misano. Sorry for the slightly late start, a little bit of technical issues starting here. We're hopefully going to be joined by BRG Marpat, who's currently our championship leader in the standings. But I did say that I'd invite him for an interview a bit earlier than this. As I said, we had a few technical issues just logging in, so I wouldn't begrudge him staying out and getting the last bit of practice in at all. I'm just going to make sure that the controls are all ready for this. Marpat, good evening. How are you?
Hi, George.
Hi, right. Marpat. How are you? I'm very sorry that it's a little later than I said it would be. I had a little bit of technical issues logging in, but thanks very much for joining me. How are you doing?
I think I have some issues with the connection because I can't hear you very well. So can you repeat, please?
Oh, sorry. I was just asking how you are, and I was just apologising for inviting you a little bit late on in free practice. Thanks very much for joining.
Oh, no problem, mate. I'm fine. I'm trying to make the right pressure right now to the Mercedes.
And so you got two races tonight. You've got Monza and Misano. You've got a pretty commanding league in the Tier 2 Championships. And how do you feel about these two races? Which do you think is going to be the strongest for you?
Yeah, it's two very different track because Monza is very fast track and Mercedes is so good there. But then in Misano, I was struggle to find the right setup. So it will be a very surprise race. I think I'm do all the best on Monza because I can do very well there, and I hope to take some advantage from the other drivers to bring home the win title.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been an extremely strong performance from you all season long. So I think there's definitely people that are going to want to try and make the most of any mistakes. And with two races involved with Monza and Misano, this was announced quite late, of course, because of the updates coming a bit sooner to ACC. So what are you aiming for with Misano? Do you think if Monza's going to be a strong track?
Yeah, I think Monza is a very strong track for Mercedes because we got some very high speed on the straight line, so we can do the best we can with the car. And I think in Misano, Dark Horror with Bentley is very good because the Bentley is very OP car there. So. I think it was a very great championship, by the way. All the season was very struggle with the other drivers, especially with Dark Horror and Elysium. So I hope that we can see a very fair play in the last two races and a big duel between with the other drivers. So let's enjoy the final race, especially in the public.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I think we'll all wish you very well. And if you do come home with the victory tonight for the total championship points, I think it'll be extremely well deserved. And so I might invite you back into the party at the end of Misano, all being well. I'd really like to hear your thoughts at the end. So I appreciate that there's only a couple of minutes left of free practice. So I'm going to say thank you very much for your time, mate, and all the best of luck for the race this evening.
Thank you so much, George. And yes, I hope that we can talk after the race in Misano. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thanks again for your time, Marpat. Thank you. Well, that was Marpat there, who is the championship leader by some margin in Tier 2 Taco. So he's currently leading the championship by 33 points. So it is really his to lose. But there are 2 races with Renville running behind with 33 points. Michael, the Dark Horror, is also only 33 points behind. So second place, there's 0 points in it, all up for grabs. And not far behind there is Elysium with the McLaren looking to certainly get an upset and try and get into the top 3. The team championship is even closer, with the Mercedes team of Marpat running the hardcore porn team at 283 total points, followed by the Bentleys with only 5 points behind that, and the McLarens of Elysium and Lamaro only 11 points there. A bit of a drift there between that and Remarkable Races in fourth of 84 points. Unlikely to bridge that gap this evening, but there's everything to play for the constructors title. So the question will be, Marpat, it's his to lose this evening, but will they also be able to bring home the constructors? With only 4 minutes and 40 left of free practice as people are getting in their final times. Let's have a quick look at the timetables and see what people are managing. So Marpat there in 6th, 0.7 adrift from the current fast and free practice Renville. But we have seen Marpat manage to bring some very fast times out of the bag at qualifying at the very last moment. So Renville and Dark Horror, the next 2 in line to the throne of Tier 2, are sat right there in 1 and 2. So worth a bit of a chat about that. So Renville featured quite heavily last week with his battles with 1-1 Ferrari, the Dark Horror and Elysium. Marpat, by the way, last week had just walked away with the race after taking the lead after the 3rd corner, and I barely even ever put the camera on him because he was so consistent and just disappeared off into the distance, commanding lead. But Renville and 1-1 Ferrari last week really kept us entertained for nearly the full hour of close battling. Renville, I have to say, as I said last week, has only gotten faster and faster in every single car, in every single league that he's racing in at the moment. I'm sure after this is over, it will definitely be a promotion to the top tiers for Renville, where I am certain he will do very well. The Dark Horror with that Bentley, really, really quick there. If you managed to tune in last week, the Dark Horror and Elysium came together quite early on in the race, and he lost a lot of time to Renville and 1-1. However, in the final 20 minutes, he started to reel Renville in, and I think it was only in the last 2 laps of the race that he capitalised on a small mistake by Renville and took 2nd place. 1-1 Ferrari, an exceptional performance last week, nipping at the heels of Renville throughout, and it was just towards the end where I think the tyres just started to let go a little bit. The Ferrari is a much more twitchy beast than the Lexus or the Bentley or the Mercedes, and very, very difficult to look after the tyres in comparison. And unfortunately, he dropped little ways back into, I believe, 4th last week after what was an absolutely incredible performance. TK Drifter there as well. Didn't feature last week. I'm wondering if TK is actually one of our reserve drivers this evening. Apologies, I will double check. But while I check that, Miles there going a bit just faster than by only 6 thousandths of a second over Elysium. Elysium, of course, featured heavily last week in his McLaren with his battles with the Dark Horror. So just checking our reserve list for this evening in Taco Tier 2. So after listening to Marpat, who we're fortunate enough for him to join us for a quick interview, followed by Woodward, everyone's favourite broadsider in the Lamborghini, with Big Time Dave. Woodward way up there this week, followed by P1SJF in the Ferrari, putting in an excellent time there to be in 9th. Fearless Freak, the Dark Horse teammate, unfortunately wasn't there yesterday. Oh, I've just seen FRL J. Williams, the Grand Inquisitor himself, going faster than Sean in P1SJF. So the two teammates in the two Ferraris for the UPS Express team sat currently in 9th and 10th. So good positions for them with a lot to be gained, I'm sure. Fearless Freak, as I said, the Bentley teammate of Michael, the Dark Horror 57. Who unfortunately wasn't in last week, which I'm sure if he had managed to join us last week, he probably would have put the Bentley team up into first place going to this final round. But they sit only 5 points adrift off of the Mercedes. Lamaro there, which is Elysium's teammate in the McLaren. Lamaro last week really suffered a bit of a problem. I think I had a connection issue early on, he said, which... after lap 1, he ended up coming out of the pits quite far back, but he did recover some points for the team. Faco 77, who is Marpat's Mercedes teammate, looking to score some points today and help keep Mercedes with a Drivers' Championship and a Constructors' Championship. And is that rain? Is that rain for qualifying? Well, we'll have to see. That could really scupper a lot of people's hopes and change the dynamic of everything. I was not expecting that at all. So who's out first? Big Time Dave is on his way out. But rain on the track, saying it's greasy, so but still good for slick tyres for now. But and it looks like the forecaster is going to dry out a little bit, as Faco just gets ahead of Cascanova there as they leave the pits. But this will change things drastically. And so who will be able to capitalise now in qualifying in these changeable conditions? So let's see. Go out with the first drivers who have headed out. Let's go with our championship leader, BRG Marpat. Going out on dry tyres. Best to get out quickly before the track gets too wet. Doesn't look like it's heavy rain. Doesn't look like it's going to change into an actual wet track. But it will be slippy out there. It will favour these cars, such as the Mercedes, with extremely complex traction control systems. If you have a careful, light foot, then it will still hold a lot of speed around here. But as I was saying, Faco 77, Marpat's teammate in the Mercedes. Marpat just goes straight on there, just testing the braking zones there in the wet as it becomes a little bit different. Faco 77, if you haven't been onto the FRL website or into the FRL Discord, Faco 77 is our resident journalist and has been writing a weekly expose, so to speak, on the Taco Tier 2 Championship. And go check that out if you can. So let's have a quick look. See how many are out of the pits now. Almost everybody is out of the pits now. Only a few left. One more Ferrari Lamaro. A couple of the leaders just biding their time, checking to see if there's anything they really want to change on their tyres. We'll get back in with Marpat and we'll sit on board for our first qualifying lap from the championship leader in changeable conditions. Oh, and it is definitely greasier out there than I think people have given credit for. Still 12 minutes to go. And he's straight back out there. So who else is on a flying lap? Big Time Dave on a flying lap. Let's sit with Big Time Dave. Really feeding it round there. You can tell that the track is quite greasy. As I said, I mean, looking at the forecast there, and second Lesmo, which catches out so many people, even in the dry, claims Big Time Dave, unfortunately, there. He'll likely return to the pits before heading out again. So number 441, Faco 77, the other Mercedes. See how he fares. So riding on board. So sorry, yes, in 3 minutes the forecast is going to be cloudy rather than rain. So the grease is going to get hopefully dry out pretty quickly. So all the good times are going to definitely be coming in at the last 5 minutes of qualifying, I'd imagine. So going to cross the line now. Greasy time, 1:54.1. Baco goes fastest. As this track dries out, are we going to see in the sub-50s like we were expecting from free practice, or is it going to stay just greasy enough to level the playing field really, and see if maybe some of the leaders we're expecting might end up a bit further down the pack. So Faco here is making his way down towards the Della Roggia at half a second faster already. So Woodward going fast so far, followed by TK Drifter just taking now the place in the Nissan there. Let's get back on board with Marpat, who goes off again. Not happy with his time. Curse of the Observer for sure. So Renville in the Lexus, looks like he's going to be approaching Curva Parabolica just behind Superkart Ray. Superkart Ray going wide there will have invalidated his time for sure. So Renville, another one of these fast drivers who's looking to stand his authority onto this race this evening, and likely in Misano, the Lexus, extremely stable platform, very quick. And Renville going fast there with a 1:51 for 4 seconds faster, sorry, 3 seconds faster than Faco there. And so as he goes through first chicane, coming onto Curva Grande, he's up by almost 0.2. So we'll sit on board with Renville for a bit while he completes this lap. I would say that that track is starting to look dry and probably starting to yield some quicker times as the cars go over it. The rain has stopped according to the forecast. Oh, a bit too much curb there for Renville as he takes into the gravel on the second part of the chicane. So who else do we want to have a look at? Will be Dark Horror in the Bentley as he goes through the Variante Ascari and down onto the long straight, which I'd love to be able to pronounce, but my Italian is awful. So we'll just call it the back straight down towards Curva Parabolica. So some people might disagree with me, but I find that the Bentley, while it is one of the strongest cars, if not the strongest car, is a bit of a handful in the wet. A 1:50.8 for the Dark Horror, Michael. Now that puts him in third at the moment, with Elysium going fastest with a 1:50. So we're about to see the sub-50s for sure, which is what we are expecting. I think probably a little bit distracted by the car going straight on there into the first chicane. That doesn't really help stopping there and putting out yellow flags for other drivers. It's quite distracting to see cars picking up dust, going off and stopping in the runoff area there. As if your eye gets drawn to it for even a tenth of a second, you might miss your braking point, your turning point, and be a bit slower. But Michael here, Dark Horror, is capable of pulling back a bit of time as he's 4 tenths up going through the Lesmos. Seven tenths up now on his way down towards the Ascari chicane. Oh, that's quite a drift. He's holding a second up though as he gets onto the last straight. Probably just close enough to Lamaro to maybe make use of a bit of slipstream. As you can see, his delta time just getting a little bit better there. Probably not due to the drive out, but probably just due to a little bit of the hole that Lamaro is making in front of him. Down to second gear for the Curva Parabolica. And really seems to be working that wheel quite hard, so there still must be a little bit of cruise, and he's keeping it quite tight, not letting it run out. But that will be into the 149.8, puts him second, so behind TK Drifter. 5 minutes 45 of qualifying left to go. And let's take a look at where has Marpat gone. Marpat is in the just leaving the pits now, so we'll let him do his outlap and we'll come back and have a look at him in a second. Who else is out? Renville just going past there. Renville down in 8th now, 1.4 seconds of drift off the best time of TK Drifter in the Nissan at a 1:49. That is an awful camera. Let's see if we can get on board but not have an entire helmet in our way. But unfortunately this is going to be a invalid lap. That's better. So 1-1 Ferrari sat up in 5th, putting in good pace there. Jay Williams and P1SJF were sat in 9th and 10th respectively. P1SJF down at 15th at the moment. Maybe struggling to put the car together in the greasy conditions. Very, very difficult, of course, to suddenly change from dry conditions to greasy after a lot of pre-practice. Just starting to kick the back of the car out there as he starts to go through Lesmo 1. King of the Hills is another person worth talking about, actually. King has been doing exceptionally well lately, really increasing in pace. Here sat in the Audi, the teammate of Darren Mark, but in the Nissan of late, King has been exceptionally quick, especially in the GT3 Sunday series that's currently running around the British tracks. His Nissan has been regularly up in the top 4, top 5 qualifiers, and as his consistency has gone better, he is really reaching for those podium positions. Fearless Freak, Dark Horrors, Bentley teammate, who I said was absent last week, is at least now managing to put in some good times to get him into 7th at the moment, with 3 minutes left of qualifying. Which should hopefully put him in a good position for the race to score some extra points and see if the Bentleys can bridge the gap to the Mercedes in the Constructors. With Facco down in 12th. Looks like at the moment, from the pace being set at Monza, bearing in mind that there's 2 races this evening, first Monza, then Misano. With those 2 races, there is every chance that the Bentleys could nab this if this is the pace that Fearless Freak is managing to set around Monza. As he closes in on Lamborghini in front. I think could be Woodward just in front of him. That is Woodward just in front. So 8th and 9th about to cross the line together, seeing if they can improve their standings at all. Unfortunately, Woodward is on a invalid lap. Marpat's doing the pits. Looks like he's going to go out one more time. Still sat in 5th, but we've seen him do some fantastic moves from a few places back on the grid. Extremely good at taking a few positions early. And then just the raw pace and consistency is what leads him down to the podium positions and the victories. Renville going very quick, just coming into the first chicane, not too far behind Marpat. Takes a lot of curb there. That will surely hurt time. Yeah, already nearly 3/10 off just from taking a bit too much curb, and he thinks better off it and pulls off. With only a minute 30, that will be Renville's best efforts for qualifying. Sat in 2nd. Elysium going slowly, but no bother there. Elysium in third at the moment, with not much separating him from the Dark Horror, who's getting all out sorts there at Lesmo 2, pushing the car hard, trying to get some time in. Lamaro, the other McLaren, has put in some good times, sat in fifth, as Miles V33 in the Porsche manages to take fifth. That is impressive. As a fellow Porsche enthusiast myself, I know how difficult it is to get that car to go fast around a track with long straights like Monza or Paul Ricard. The Porsche requires so much rear wing, at least in my hands for sure. It's quite a draggy vehicle. Fearless Freak goes a fifth there, and Marpat crossing the line here. So let's stay with Marpat, our championship leader, as he crosses the line with 20 seconds to go in qualifying, looking to see if he can better 8th position. Very nice and clean through there. 2 tenths up. As best currently is a 150.385, and we know that there is sub 50s in Marpat, especially now that the track is nice and dry. Very controlled braking. Very clean through there. The car looks like it is working for him nicely. As we come into Lesmo 1. Lesmo 2, which can kick you out a little bit if you're not accurate with it, especially if you get a bit too wide there, but everything's nice and neat there. Still 0.26 up. Coming down towards the Ascari chicane, the all-important chicane which leads onto the back straight that I can't pronounce, down towards Parabolica. And wow, really gained some speed there, nearly 8 tenths up. So looking like we are going to be doing better than 9th place for Marpat. So long as one corner left, the Parabolica, the long sweeping right-hander. Got to be patient in this corner, know exactly when to get on the power as he starts to drift it wide. And the old trick of bringing it right back as close as you dare to that white line. Then cross the line in third. As we said, Marpat able to pull it out of the bag at the very last second in qualifying, as we've seen him do before. So the Dark Horror leads Drifter, leads Marpat, leads Renville, Elysium, Fearless Freak, Miles, Lamaro, 1 Ferrari, Woodward are our top 10. And incredibly, only a second in it to the top 8, but realistically only a second and 4/100ths for the top 10 here round Monza. So as these cars will be waiting to start the race after the end of qualifying, they'll be thinking about their setups, their fuel loads, their tyre pressures, their pit stop strategy. So it's only a 40-minute race with 2 races tonight. But it is a mandatory pit stop for tyres in each race. So everyone's going to be on a nice, good, clean set of fresh tyres throughout. Very few people, if anyone really, is going to be worried about tyre life unless anyone decides to go 38 minutes with a pit stop. So everyone's going to be pushing hard at both of these races. Of course, herein lies the problem with Monza, and we'll be sat with Marpat for our rundown to the infamous Turn 1 chicane at Monza. Let's see if we can keep it clean in Tier 2 for Taco Tuesday. At least the weather looks good this time, not greasy. It looks like it's still going to be dry. The variable everyone's going to have to watch out for, with everyone pushing hard with only 40 minutes in the race, is of course drive-throughs. Drive-throughs are not an impossibility at Monza, with a couple, particularly the Curva della Rogers chicane, where if you go straight on there, very easy to pick up track warnings, as is the turns 1 and 2 for the chicane there. There's the straight runoff with the slalom built in with the track boards, which usually gets taken out on the first lap. But not impossible to pick up a few track limit warnings here, followed by a drive-through. So I was mentioning TK Drifter. I'm pretty sure TK Drifter is a reserve driver for this evening. TK Drifter, of course, very quick in that Nissan, up in second. Taking the Nissan of Ugoni, who missed last week's race as well, the Cascanova's teammate. Haven't seen Ugoni for a couple of weeks now. Is missed in the Taco Tier 2 Championship, as I've had a few battles with Ugoni myself. He's quite quick in that Nissan and does sit up in the higher end of the league table. So TK Drifter up there taking the place of Ugoni for the evening in the Nissan and doing well. But so for anyone that's unaware, when we don't have a full grid, it is available to reserve drivers to put their name down to fill the gaps, and with championships such as this one, where we are looking at teams with specific cars, even specific paint schemes for these teams, then when, as a reserve driver for something like this, if there's no free car choice, then you will be told which car you will be taking. So TK Drifter there in the Nissan. Not sure if he's familiar with it. It's not the easiest car to be fast in, but he's gone second already. But he will score no points. So if the race were to finish as it has started, with Dark Horror, TK Drifter and BRG Marpat, then TK Drifter scores no points. BRG Marpat would then go into second and score the points for second. Just so that's how it works, as we start our guided formation lap round Monza. So, for those of you unaware, there's two races tonight. 40 minutes at Monza, 40 minutes at Misano. So that'll be a quick break in broadcasting while we switch servers at the end of this. This is because Kunis has brought forward the 1.8 update for PS4, PS5 to a couple of days early, and it messes up the FRL League plans. So we've brought this forward to allow the Race of Champions, which is going to be all the champions in FRL racing next week, Monday at Suzuka. It allows that to happen, and it allows all these people who are playing on a mixture of PS4s and PS5s, of course, at the moment. It allows them to still race one another and complete and round out this championship, which has been fantastic. And as we can see, certainly for the constructors, going right down to the wire between three teams, the Bentleys, the Mercedes and the McLarens, as Renville takes a lot of grass. Oh, he takes a lot of grass at the formation lap. Doesn't look like he hit the wall too hard, so I hope he hasn't picked up any damage there. But he is going to have to catch back up to the group and slot himself back into where he was, which is fourth, to before he starts the race. But there you go, you can see him driving through everybody as as happens, or gets a little bit too far ahead of himself and ends up in third there. But that's okay. Doesn't look like there's any damage to the front of that Lexus. I hope there isn't, because any damage, bodywork around a track with such long straights can really have an effect on your top speed, which is obviously all important around Monza as we get into double file any minute now. Dark Horror still warming those tyres. Marpat is pulling a Kimi Raikkonen and just driving straight on. As we all line up nice and neatly. Nice and neatly, everybody except almost all were. Almost all of them for about 8th backwards, all trying to work out where they are. Some people taking to the grass. As we round the curve at Parabolica, down towards the start-finish straight. Dark Horror in the lead, TK Drifter, BRG Marpat. Very tempting to make a move into the first corner here, but very high risk. Do you keep it clean? Do you try and get the lead? What is the strategy? Well, we're about to get racing here at Monza for Taco Tier 2. Be interesting to see, can we keep it clean through turns 1 and 2? As we cross the start-finish line, we're looking for the green lights. There they are, and they are racing down towards turn 1. As TK Drifter looks like he gets a pretty good start on Dark Horror there, just ahead. However, Dark Horror is holding the inside line. Elysium looking to the right as we get quite wide coming down the stretch. And, oh, one more Ferrari out! Woodward out! Lamaro into the wall! Woodward, Elysium, Renville, oh! Lots of cars collected there. TK Drifter turned round, hit by Lamaro. BRG Marpat maintaining up into second then as TK Drifter went off. But lots of cars collected there. Some doing the smart move and just taking to the escape road as Marpat comes down now into towards the second lot of chicanes. So that was a lot going on in that first corner. I'm not sure where the contact started. It looked like a Ferrari came across the track, hit the wall, and that just sort of cascaded as well. But they hadn't even reached the first corner. It was still on the straight where the incidents happened. One Ferrari continuing there. So Elysium's actually, Marpat in third. One more Ferrari up into second, done well there. Elysium in fourth, but Renville looked like he took quite a drop down, as Lamaro doing quite well. Being there, it looked like Lamaro had gone into the wall as well. P1SJF in 8th. Williams separated by Woodward there. Trying to take a quick look. Looks like there's damage on the front of P1SJF's Ferrari and damage on the front of Jay Williams' Ferrari as well. So it looks like those two have come into a bit of mishap there. Renville down in 12th, but he does have the pace to get past. Be interesting to see how he does that. Miles down in 14th, and a few more cars bring up with Faco quite far back now. As the Dark Horror, Michael, crosses the start-finish line to lead lap 1 from one more Ferrari with Marpat now. Got a good drive out of the curve of Parabolica there on one Ferrari, and has just passed him with sheer brute speed out of the Mercedes there, which is good to see. And now Marpat will be chasing down the Dark Horror, looking for that win. He doesn't just want to win this championship, I'm sure he wants to win the races as well. He's not going to let that get away from him. Elysium and one Ferrari back there. Looks like they'll be having a little bit of a battle as Elysium follows one Ferrari through the Rogers chicanes down towards Lesmo 1. Not an easy place around here to overtake once you end up in this back portion of Monza. So it looks like he is just going to follow one Ferrari. And is he going to look down the inside of Lesmo 2? He is, as one Ferrari went off a little bit wide there. Elysium managed to keep the drive out and keep it together and keep it going. Fearless Freak following there, the teammate of the Dark Horror. And that is already early on in this race looking like Bentley's putting points on the board if they can keep this up for another 36 minutes. Looking down, Woodward and Renville. Renville looking on the inside of Woodward, going to the Ascari chicane. As they go side by side, Renville takes a lot of curb. Woodward just gets a little bit of a drive out the corner there, but Renville right up behind him. Will he get the drive on Woodward out onto the final straight as Woodward does keep ahead? Renville has got that slipstream though behind him. As Renville, is he going to go around the outside of the Parabolica? Quite difficult to accomplish. But is he going to get the cut back on Woodward? There's drive out of that corner yet as they go side by side, and Woodward looks like he puts the brakes on and goes into the pits. So Renville takes the position there. Renville moving back up into 9th already. So Renville want one Ferrari in the pits as well. Are they pitting early for strategy to give themselves a little bit of free air to get some good laps in and possibly get the undercut? So one Ferrari, Woodward, Cascanova, all in the pits. Miles pitted already, down in last at the moment. As well, let's have a look at Fearless Freak, who is gaining on Elysium there. As Elysium goes on and through the curve to La Roger, and Fearless Freak will go down the inside of Elysium, who went into the gravel and slowed down, and will have a nice easy run into Lesmo 1 there. So a bit of a mistake by Elysium, who drops down into 4th. So looking at that gap there from Marpat to the Dark Horror, there's only 2.8 seconds. We'll see if that gets chipped away at. So we'll go down to TK Drifter here in his Nissan, who we did see qualified second exceptionally fast, but did end up spinning round into turn 1. Didn't quite catch that with all the melee that was going on behind as he follows Superkart Ray down towards the Ascari chicane. Probably looking to get a nice strong drive out of here in this Nissan and seeing if he can get him going down towards Curva Parabolica. But it looks just to maintain the distance as he pulls out onto this back straight here. Definitely within slipstream reach. Coming down towards Curva Parabolica. Let's see if he just claws away at that gap and manages to get in through. No, coming onto the start-finish straight now. As it's only 0.3 seconds behind, that slipstream's going to work for him. Will it be a brave move into turn 1? Looks a bit too far back for there. Maybe get a nice tidy turn 1 complete around the Curva Grande, and maybe a cheeky move into the Roger chicane. He has closed that gap nicely through the chicane. Pulling up behind Superkart Ray. We'll stay on board for this, just to see what sort of move we might look at down into the next chicane. So he's going to stay backed off for now and just maintain pressure. Oh, it takes a huge amount of curb and gets airborne there, but keeps it tidy through the next bit. Superkart Ray looking like he's carrying a lot of damage at the front of that Ferrari as well, but still managing to hold good pace. So, oh, I've missed something with Marpat. Marpat carrying a lot of damage at the front of the car. Not sure what's happened there, but he has dropped behind as Fearless Freak in the Bentley now takes up second place, and Marpat with his bonnet open and Lamaro bearing down on him. It's not looking good for a Mercedes Constructors title here. With that much damage on the Mercedes, it is definitely going to be losing speed. There's still 32 minutes left to go, only 8 minutes into the race. Will he pull into the pits? He's got to, I'm sure. What happened there? I'm sure we'll find out a little bit later. But yeah, that is unfortunate. Remind you that Marpat has a 33-point lead over the Dark Horror and Renville, who are both 33 points behind, currently joint second place in the championship. So a 33-point lead is pretty commanding. But if Marpat has a long pit here and ends up down the standings, if I just bring up the point system for Taco Tier 2, I can possibly start to make wild assumptions as to how they might fare. So Marpat, yeah, 33 points ahead of Renville and Michael, the Dark Horror. 40 points for first place, 36 for second, and 32 for third. So if Renville, the Dark Horror, end up on the podium places here, and Marpat ends up a little bit further down the standings, this could bring it all into striking distance for the second race at Misano. And if you were here for the short interview with Marpat before the race started, of course, issue with Misano is he thinks that the Bentleys are a bit stronger around there, and he said that Monza was his stronger track. So this could go right down to the wire even still. So at the end of this race, I will try and work out, probably poorly mind you, try and work out what the mathematical probability is of where each one needs to finish and where the other would need to finish in order to take home a championship win. So Renville bears down on Jay Williams here. We'll stay on board for this. Renville, as we saw, was tied up right at the beginning there with those incidents that happened down into turn one, as they so often do at Monza, sitting in fifth, equal points behind with the Dark Horror for the championship. So sat in joint second place. In fact, I think off of the table, Renville at least sits probably in third realistically, with Michael the Dark Horror having 3 podiums, 2 of them wins, while Renville has 2 podiums. A very, very consistent Renville with a fourth, third, third finishes in the 5 races, with Michael the Dark Horror with 5th, 12th unfortunately, which would have probably put him a bit further up the standings for that 12th. First and second for the last 3, getting very consistent and very fast. Renville looking to pass the Grand Inquisitor himself, Jay Williams, the Grand Fromage of Formula Racing League, our founder himself, our dear leader, Kim Jong-jae Williams. So I'm sure, possibly Fearless Freak and Dark Horror might be a little bit out of reach for Renville with only 28 minutes, but putting the pressure on Jay Williams, getting to 4th, maybe even getting past Lamaro into a podium position will stand him in very good stead going into Misano, and will be an excellent recovery drive if he can do that. But as we've seen before, he has pulled some amazing performances out of the bag as he just takes a fantastically clean line through turn 1. No major dramas there, nothing fought there by Jay. Renville had the power down the straight, but will Jay try and get back at him down to the second chicane, the Roger chicane, our next main overtaking point. Jay all over the back there, having a look down the outside. Renville doing what he does, which is just sitting in the middle of the track, not letting you really take an idea of which way you'd want to go. So Renville sitting 2.4 seconds, still to pit, mind, behind Lamaro and Fearless Freak. 6.7 seconds adrift there, as Renville goes pretty wide there, almost going off where he went off in the formation lap, which I almost forgot happened. As Jay Williams sat 0.5% off the back of him, and it will be this next back straight after the Sky Chicane and the Curva Parabolica that will kind of dictate how these two will fight going through the next lap. Is because if Renville can start to put distance between himself and Jay, then he will be now setting his sights firmly on Lamaro 2 seconds ahead, as Jay Williams now 0.6 seconds behind, taking a much wider line out of the Parabolica. Renville not really taking the qualifying line, Jay keeping it close into the right. as they both put in decent times of 151.2, 151.9 race pace. But Jay 0.5 seconds adrift. Renville not defending any lines there, seemingly happy with the distance he has ahead. So the field spreading out nicely now. 1-1 Ferrari is our leader for those that have pitted. He pitted early, looks like he pitted for clean air, which he seems to have a bit of now. Sat plus one lap, seemingly, and 4 seconds behind the leaders. So not a lot of time lost at Monza pit. It's relatively short in comparison to a lot of tracks. So depends if you're repairing damage. Whereas Marpat's 4 seconds behind 1-1 Ferrari. Oh God, almost every time I look at Marpat, the curse of the observer happens, and he ends up going off or having an issue. Although we did miss the issue that really affected him earlier, as he is battling with Elysium around 15th and 16th at the moment, but likely looking ahead and using my terrible mental arithmetic, with all the others still yet to pit. Just trying to wonder, once they do start to pit, where they might end up. But you could likely think with their pace, as they're fighting here down into turn 1, that they would probably start to come out in the middle of the top 10, as Marpat holds that inside line, and Elysium takes a lot of curb there, keeps it together. Marpat a little bit wide onto the gravel there, as they come down to the Curva del Grande and on towards the chicane de la Roggia. And if you can hear noise in the background, apologise. That is my large and stupid dog having a go at me. As they go through the chicane there and down towards the Lesmos, Marpat maintains that lead. So pitting now is Fearless Freak and TK Drifter. So you can imagine that if they're in the pits now, they'll probably still come out ahead of Marpat and Elysium, who may have actually had to pit for damage. Elysium right on the back of Marpat, as he was in the last lap. Very quick through the Ascari chicanes there, and Elysium likely going to get enough slipstream here to possibly look down the inside of Parabolica, if not look down the inside of turn 1 once we get onto the final pit straight. As Marpat gets into a bit of a slide, that will slow him down. Elysium, will he have the drive? He will. He is really gaining on the back of Marpat there. He'll flick out probably to the inside, I would have thought. Going to the outside, he's confident he's got the drive to complete this manoeuvre before the braking zone then. Marpat says no way, he's going to take the inside line, but he goes straight on. And he's going to back off there so as not to get track limits. And he'll pull out behind Elysium likely. Good sportsmanship there. Probably just outbraked himself a little and gone straight on there, a bit unfortunate, but did the absolutely correct thing. It's safest always to just use the runoff at Monza rather than trying to really nail that chicane. But of course you've got to be aware of the warning for track limits, and always good to give the place to the car rather than just carrying on. Picking up a bit of dirt there as he runs 1.8 seconds now behind Elysium. As the 1-1 Ferrari then on TK Drifter coming down onto the back straight towards the curve of Parabolica. Got a lot of drive there. He's right behind him. And looking to go around the outside there, side by side down into here. As 1-1 Ferrari comes... Oh no, they touched, but he just manages to hold that slide. TK Drifter backing out of that as he should, and a little bit of a flash of the lights. Please to apologise. But that's good to see. Nice to see that that didn't get worse than needed to be. Hard braking by Drifter there to try and maintain track position behind 1-1 Ferrari. You've got to bet he'll want to see if he can get good drive out of here and move into the next lot of chicanes and see if there's a move on still. So our current leader, FRLJ Williams, still yet to pit though, with Renville pitting just behind him. Currently taking that Ferrari along, and P1SJF there from UPS Express also up in third, still yet to pit. So the pit lane is probably taking about 50 seconds to a minute off your time. So these guys pitting will probably start to end up down around Lamaro, 1-1 Ferrari when they come out, who are about a lap behind. Or possibly, I think they might be even be a little bit closer, trying to work out. So your Volton there in 7th, who has just pulled into the pits now. Looking like he's got some damage on that Porsche. Let's see if he can nail the pit stop. Oh, unfortunately, we've overshot a little bit. Still waiting to be picked up. And that'll be the pit stop started and going okay. 19 minutes left. We've just passed the halfway point in this race and we've had plenty of drama so far. Darren Mark still to pit in the Audi. Big Time Dave in the Lamborghini still to pit. So these four running up ahead. So the Dark Horror is our first pitted entrance, followed by Fearless Freak, the two Bentleys looking to increase their lead in the Constructors' Championship. But with Marpat currently all the way down in 13th, of course with four yet to pit. So that's provisional 9th. That would mean that we are going to start to bridge the gap into the Drivers' Championship as well. So only 33 points between Michael and Marpat. So as it stands, with Michael the Dark Horror as our provisional first, with 4 to pit ahead, that'd be 40 points. And with 4 to pit ahead of Marpat, who's now into 12th, running only 2 seconds of drift for Elysium. He looks like he's battling with TK Drifter here, so let's get on board with that. 9th, picking up 16 points. So it sounds like Marpat would still lead the championship going into the final, but not by as comfortable a margin as he would like, as Elysium tries to outbrake Drifter into the curve of Parabolica, but Drifter closes the door on him and Elysium backs out just a little as they both take a wide racing line over the curbs here, running down towards turn 1. Elysium breaks the slipstream, takes the inside line, looking like he'll complete that quite quickly as well, with Marpat right behind, looking to capitalise on these two fighting, slowing themselves down to bring him within striking distance of them both and gain these positions. Nice and tidy from Elysium, straight through. Marpat now sitting 1.4 seconds behind Drifter, who only sits 0.6 seconds behind Elysium. Elysium will probably start to pull away now, while Drifter probably turns his attention to defending from Marpat. Or is he going to look at cutting back, getting that place back from Elysium if he can? Here we come into the faster section of the track after Lesmo 2, running down towards the Ascari chicane, onto the back straight, Curva Parabolica, onto the pit straight. This is where all the overtaking opportunities really come into play as it's all about getting good drives out of the slower corners and the chicanes, and using slipstream from the cars in front. Likely everyone here running quite low downforce, low wing setups to maximise these drives and maximise these top speeds down into these corners. As here we have Elysium, TK Drifter and Marpat all following one another, and as I mentioned earlier, I believe TK Drifter is one of our reserve drivers today, so will not be any points in it for him, but the way that FRL works is they are allowed to race as if they are fighting for points. It is all about racing. They're not going to let a opponent drive through, as Marpat goes wide there. Sorry, not wide. He gets out of sorts on the final corner, the Parabolica, and drifts out and then hits the inside. We saw him do that a little bit during qualifying. We've seen him struggle to control the drive of the Mercedes out onto the pit straight. I wonder if that's what happened to him earlier when he had that huge damage and his bonnet was popped. Looks like he's picked up more damage again with only 15 minutes left to go. You've got to imagine that he's just going to try and nurse this home now and try and just mitigate the loss of points in this championship. 33 points ahead going into this, qualifying in third, had a big off at some point, looked like he took a lot of damage, pitted for a long time to fix that, and unfortunately it's happened again. So not the race he was planning for. As I spoke to him just before the race, seemed quite hopeful for a good finish. It's not over yet though. He will still maintain a lead, likely maintain a lead going into the second race this evening at Misano, where then it will be all to play for. As P1SJF pulls into the pits and after leading the race, and I might be correct in saying that. I think that's the first time P1SJF has led a race, so congratulations to Sean for doing that as he pits, and actually looks like he'll probably come out somewhere in the mid top 10. Should be absolutely excellent positioning for him. Sean, if you may remember, in the last race, unfortunately had a problem with his hardware where his steering wheel, sorry, let's start again. I think he qualified in 11th and ended up in 4th after some people had some crashes, and then his steering wheel departed from his rig. He got some sort of disconnection issue, smashed the car into a wall, ended up speeding into the pits and picking up a stop-go. So pretty bad luck for Sean last week, but he carried on through and still finished the race. Yeah, from 4th to near last due to a very unfortunate series of events. As Lamaro runs 1.3 adrift of 1 Ferrari, looking to get some points on the board for the McLarens, who run 3rd in the Constructors' Championship for Tier 2. And P1SJF, fantastic there, coming out in 7th, but it looks like he's gone straight on as he pulls out now into 9th. Still be a good finish and still points to play for, as he sits in the thick of it with 13 minutes to left and only 2 seconds behind the car in front. Darren Mark there running in second still to pit with a lot of damage on the front of that Audi. There's been a lot of damage to a lot of these cars here in Monza, which all seem to probably been picked up with that huge incident at the beginning of the race, which we managed to catch up. We managed to see a little bit of as it happened, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of footage coming out of the drivers after this regarding that incident, because that was huge. All the driver IDs, I was going to clean that up a little bit. So, yeah, Darren Mark, the last one to pit, still with 12 minutes to go. That should put him out in a nice position, actually, possibly up into the top 10. BRG Marpat, our race leader, is running a lap adrift now, 2 seconds behind Drifter after having that bit of a problem coming out of that last corner, followed closely by Miles V33 and P1SJF. As God, what a train here for P1SJF leads. P1SJF from King and Woodward coming down into the Curva Grande. Not far behind that would be Big Time Dave and Superkart Ray. Can he hold them off? This looks to be the closest battle we've got on the thing so far. Elysium and TK Drifter pretty close. With BRG Marpat a little bit further behind. Drifter holding Elysium off. As there's a train of nearly 4 cars running down towards the Lesmos here with only 11 minutes to go. Can P1SJF hold them off? As it looks like the Porsche kicking up a bit of dust there. Everyone's nice and clean through there, getting into this fast portion with 3 cars all battling for the similar places. The pressure is definitely on. Let's get rid of the massive table that's going on. So who will get the drive out of the Ascari onto the back straight? Yellow flag in front as they pass the McLaren of Lamaro. Not sure what's happened there to him, but that will probably play nicely into the hands of all those that pass him with only 10 minutes to go. The yellow flag's still out. Yellow flag's just gone in now. Sean taking a wide line there as King, with that pace in that Audi, and looks like he has the drive on him as he takes the outside line. They go side by side. Mercedes as well there of, I believe, Facco looking to unlap himself, but Sean closes the door there. Mercedes backing off, thinking better of it, but King of the Hills completing that move there nice and cleanly, all down to the lines they took out of the Parabolica onto the pit straight. And now, unfortunately, Sean there running a little bit more adrift than he probably would have liked. So here we are with the Dark Horror with only 9 minutes to go, looking like he's going to be winning this race, all things being well. Fearless Freak only 12 seconds behind, so his teammate there ready to fend off any would-be pretenders for the lead. So that will net the Dark Horror 40 points as it stands. So as it stands, the Dark Horror will end up with 216 points at the end of the race. And Marpat, if he stays where he is, 8 seconds adrift of TK Drifter, but TK Drifter not scoring points in this, I believe, as he's a reserve driver. I put Marpat then into 8th, which would be 18 points to his 209, which would be 227. So that will only be 11 points between Michael the Dark Horror and BRG Marpat leading into the final race at Misano as things stand right now. So if for the Michael the Dark Horror to win the championship at that rate into Misano, he would have to come first, with Marpat doing 4th or worst. So as it stands, Marpat in his place, Drifter in the Nissan. Marpat would be looking to score in the top 4 to keep his championship, and with the Dark Horror winning the next race. So all to play for, but nothing guaranteed. So we can look at Miles 33 there. Looks like he's on the back of Marpat there, running very close, and Marpat wanted to keep that defence up and keep as high a position as he can for the next 7 minutes for points alone. But I think Marpat's probably carrying a little bit of damage, and we've seen him get out of sorts screwily with that Mercedes, which can be quite hard to tame if the setup's not just right. It can be quite oversteer happy, and that Porsche gets such great drive out of those slower corners as they go side by side through the Ascari, and the Porsche definitely, and he touches, and Marpat's into the wall. That is going to hamper Marpat incredibly, who thankfully seems to have recovered and is running a few seconds now behind Miles. But yeah, that was side by side into it. There looked to be enough space. wouldn't want to pass any judgment on what happened there, but Marpat into the wall again from contact with the Porsche there. The Porsche running much higher. Now he's still like 3 seconds, so he must have bounced off the wall and managed to mitigate the amount of time lost there. But that is still one position down, and that does change how things are going to look going into the final race, even more so as we see that damage on the front of that Mercedes is quite poor now, as he runs ahead of the Audi of King of the Hills, followed by the Mercedes of his teammate Flacco77. So as they're running right now with the Bentleys in the top two, as he must be picking up some sort of damage, because King of the Hills, great pace, looking like he's wanting to try something. You know, going into that chicane there is always going to be hard work, as he just holds off. But King of the Hills wants to make positions. He wants points in this, and Marpat really fighting with everything he's got with this damaged Mercedes to keep him at bay, just for damage limitation going into Misano. That Audi's got to have a better drive, and Facco there, the teammate of his, possibly even looking to unlap himself during this. As the Audi gets the drive on him and pulls ahead of Marpat, that last hit into the wall is going to really, really hamper his speed. So not the race Marpat would have liked. Starting to slip away from him a little bit. And you can see the pace of that Audi in comparison to the Mercedes. This isn't a slight on King's abilities, who's an extremely fast driver and is only getting better and better each race, but more a reflection on the amount of damage that Mercedes is carrying, that Marpat had no answer to the drive of that Audi, as his teammate passes him and unlaps himself as well. And who's running behind him? P1SJF running behind Marpat now. He is looking to overtake him. So drama here at Monza, but it only makes the battle into Misano even closer, as Marpat has led this championship almost all the way. We spoke to him just before the race, and he thought Monza was the stronger of the two for him to increase his lead, but we could be looking at a surprise usurper in Michael the Dark Horror, who is sat firmly in first here with Fearless Freak, his teammate, plus 1 lap behind. The Dark Horror running a lap ahead of everyone in that massively powerful Bentley. And P1SJF there. Where are they? Just coming down towards the Ascari chicanes. You've got to believe P1SJF is going to get good drive out of the Ascari chicane and onto the thing, as he closes the door on him long before the Ascari chicane. Not even going to wait for a slipstream moment. Just complete that right before the Ascari chicane and continue on, as Marpat again falls down the standings, getting it closer and closer between Dark Horror and Marpat going into this final race. The mathematics of this, once we get to the end, I will try and work out. I've even got a pen out just in case. I wouldn't want anyone pulling me up on my mathematics over the internet. It'd be embarrassing. So Marpat there now. Well, you got Superkart Ray 1 lap behind, so running behind Marpat there on track, I think is it's 3 numbers. Is that Darren Mark running just behind him? No. One behind him is Woodward, and Woodward is down in 19th. So if Woodward can catch up with Marpat, that's only unlapping himself. So Marpat sat in 11th, which is provisional 10th because of TK Drifter being a reserve driver for us this evening. So if Dark Horror looks to win 40 points this evening in this first race, and Marpat to come away in 10th, would be getting 14 points, 14 points, putting Marpat would then go up from 209 to 223 points, and Michael from 176 would be going up to 216 points. So 7 points between these two with a minute left in this race. Only 7 points separating the Dark Horror from Marpat, as Marpat goes wide, picks up a lot of gravel, and he spins out, and he almost goes into the pits. Oh God, that would have really been insult to injury with only 40 seconds left in this race. So let's stay on board then with our race leader, Michael the Dark Horror. Flawless throughout, kept out of trouble into that turn 1. Had a pretty good lead over the rest of the pack already by Curva Grande, and has just led this race throughout. As he rounds the corner, 15 seconds to go. Will he go for one more lap? Looks like there'll be one more lap left to go. So with only 7 points between the Dark Horror and Marpat, and again, this is me assuming that TK Drifter is not scoring points, because I'm quite sure he's taking the place of Ugoni, who's missed out on this race. So with that in mind, if that is the case, only 7 points separating them, then if the Dark Horror would need to finish 7 points ahead of BRG Marpat in Mazzano, which first and third is 7 points ahead. So all BRG Marpat needs to do is finish ahead of the Dark Horror, obviously. But the Dark Horror, if he were to come first, then Marpat needs to come second to secure this title. With the Dark Horror second, Marpat needs to come fourth to secure this title. So looking down the standings, realistically, well, I'd expect to see these guys in the top 5. Hopefully Marpat wouldn't have such an issue with his race as he had the bad luck he's had today in Monza. But Marpat would need, if he's behind the Dark Horror, Marpat needs to finish within 2 places of him. As Marpat rounds the curve of Parabolica to take another victory in Taco Tuesday Tier 2. And very well deserved, closing that gap. And second place is going to go to his teammate Fearless Freak, which will give a commanding lead to the Bentleys in the Constructors title. And the McLarens will likely jump the Mercedes as well. The Mercedes will drop into third for the Constructors after this race, with one more still to go at Mazzano. So Marpat there, still running in 11th, just coming around the Lesmos there to finish. And one of the things I will confirm in between races is the status of TK Drifter and his status in Taco Tier 2, and how that will affect the points going into the final. Now, as much as I enjoyed the interview with Marpat just before the qualifying session, I'm not going to do what they do in Sky Sports and demand another interview to ask what happened. We'll find that out later. Let him concentrate on his practice for Mazzano, his qualifying, and he's sure he's got a lot on his mind and a lot of focus to complete Mazzano to take home this victory. So all to play for at the end of Taco Tuesday Tier 2 as we take a look at the timetables here for the race. With the Dark Horror from Fearless Freak, the Bentleys locking out the front row. Jay Williams, 1-1 Ferrari, 2 different Ferrari teams there, but 2 more Ferraris. Great points there for UPS Express. I think that's their first podium of Taco Tier 2. That's fantastic. A good, strong result for 1-1 Ferrari, who pitted early after getting involved in a bit of incident at the beginning of the race, and clearly managed to put in some good pace and clean air to come away with 4th. So that undercut paid off well from Renville, who definitely had a different race today. He went off in the formation lap and then got involved in the incident at the very beginning. But a good recovery drive here to come away in 5th. But he will now sit adrift on the points going into the final race. But it's all to play for between the top 2 with Marpat and the Dark Horror. So then Elysium in the McLaren putting out in 6th. Miles 33 in the Porsche, great finish from him. He did have contact with Marpat there. Interested to see if anything comes of that because they were running very close to one another, side by side through the Ascari chicane. And Marpat, after that incident, never really regained the pace that he needed to keep going. TK Drifter in the Nissan, they're finishing 8th. King of the Hills, a great finish for him. And as everyone will now start to leave and move into the the Mazzano server, I'll close down this broadcast and reopen it for race number 2. So don't go too far, and I'll be back very shortly.